Welcome back. You're listening to Real Talk with Brian and Dan on 1150 KKNW. I'm Brian.
And who am I? I'm Dan.
Hey, Dan. Our next guest is Nathan Goldman of Terra Builders. With over 15 years of experience in the home remodeling industry, Nathan Goldman's expert advice, as well as his passion for remodeling homes, is unmatched. Founded in 2008, Terra Builders has operations in both Seattle as well as Vancouver, British Columbia. His projects range from bathroom renovations to full-scale home remodels. Nathan's understanding of the remodeling process grows with the uniqueness and challenges of each project. He sees every experience as an opportunity to make his client's vision a reality. Nathan places a high level of importance on quality and construction and the uniqueness of each individual project, making sure the client is fully aware of each step of the process. It is important to Nathan that each client knows their project is in the best hands while watching their dream home come to life. Nathan lives, breathes remodeling, and is excited to share his passion and expertise with his clients. Thanks for being on the show with us today, Nathan.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
So tell us what you're doing when you're not remodeling.
When I'm not remodeling and owning my own company, probably my biggest hobby is traveling.
Awesome.
I've got a tally, and I'm up to close to 60 different countries, and
wow.
I've visited some of them multiple times. It's my biggest passion in life is just get me on a plane, and preferably in business class or first class, and get me some champagne, and I'm happy. Get me into an airport, and I'm happy.
So what are some of your favorites?
Oh, man. My probably top three would be Japan, Thailand, and Brazil, all for extremely different reasons.
Yeah, yeah.
But this isn't the Howard Stern show, so we'll have to.
Well, we'll leave you alone then.
Yeah.
So we always ask each guest a little bit more about the home that they grew up in, because this is about real estate and homes. So tell us about where'd you grow up and a fond memory.
Mm-hmm. So I grew up in a city called Richmond, British Columbia, which is a suburb of Vancouver, British Columbia. And the area of Richmond that I grew up in is Steveston, which is a Japanese fishing village, or at least it used to be before World War II.
Wow.
I digress. A very beautiful place. And we lived in a place that wasn't. My mom owned it, but didn't. It wasn't. I wouldn't say it was the most beautifully decorated or renovated place, but I think it was somewhat strategic on her part, because looking back, my brother and I were kind of terrors, and she waited until we were grown up and out of the house until she
To have nice
renovated. And
things,
now,
right?
yeah, now it is nice. But she was a total. The house was always very clean. Mom liked to clean house, and there was always awesome food on the table and meat and potatoes because we're Scandinavian. So, yeah.
Awesome.
So how did you come up with the name Terra?
So Terra, it's a Latin word for earth, land, ground, and you have to do preparatory digging or other work, prior to building something, also known as breaking ground. So it's a bit of a play on words, I guess. We like to keep things fun and playful here at Terra Builders.
Awesome. So Terra Builders is the name of the company. Tell me, walk us through a day in the life of Nathan at Terra Builders.
Okay. Oh man, there's nothing really typical about my day. Probably what's more typical is what I do in a week, and some of those things might include meetings with new and existing clients, a lot of other various meetings on job sites that we need to do to keep projects moving on schedule, and doing walkthroughs with clients and designers. I like to keep connections going with my various sub-trades and suppliers, and make sure that those relationships are all in good standing. And it's super important to me that I make sure that I'm constantly nurturing all of those relationships that I've established over the years. And if there's anything typical or constant about my days, it's probably the driving and traffic that I can't seem to get away from in the city.
Yeah. Does that mean during the day, are you traveling between Canada and Seattle?
Not typically. I'm focusing more on the Seattle side of things, and I have a great team of people up in Vancouver that can run the show for me most of the time while I'm away. So while I'm here, I do periodically pop up and find excuses to go up and visit my family and friends whenever I can, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
What types of projects are your clients hiring you for these days?
So we've done everything from bathroom remodels to room additions, house raises, and pretty much everything in between. The most common projects for us are full house or condo remodels, most people these days want to remove the wall that separates the kitchen from the dining room or living room as well. So that's, as you know, in your line of work, that's something that we do quite often. Most of the projects that we do also typically include, gutting of the entire space and remodeling bathrooms, the kitchen, installing new millwork, countertops, appliances, replacing the plumbing and electrical finishes, installing new tile, possibly creating new lighting plans, replacing the flooring, new baseboards, door casings. It's
Runs the
never-ending.
gamut. That's
Yeah.
great.
Is there anything you can't do?
We don't really do handyman work or repair work. That's something that we steer away from. The smallest project for us that we'd probably take on would be a full bathroom remodel. Then that would, entail completely gutting it and replacing like all of the tile and fixtures. So not just doing like little cosmetic upgrades or anything like that. So it's got to be like at least a full scale bathroom.
So, a comment you mentioned, like opening the kitchen to the main living area. We get that all the time. And one of the questions is that a load-bearing wall?
Yeah.
Do you consult
Yeah.
with clients about determining that and what needs to be done to
For
make that a
sure.
safe?
Yeah, we would. Yeah, we would never take down a wall until we actually have an engineer come in and scope it and see what's going on in there, and then sign off on that and give us something with a stamp and seal on it to said it was okay to bring down. And if anything was load bearing, then we have a structural engineer involved, and he comes up with some structural drawings for us that indicate and show us exactly how to.
Did you
support
assist the
it.
client with that process? Is
Yeah,
that what I'm
for
hearing?
sure. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, we have people like that on hand that we can just bring in and consult with.
I know for a lot of times, I know Brian's walked through homes, many homes. I've walked through many homes, and sometimes you walk in there and you're befuddled by the best thinking, right? Like the
Yeah.
remodel that was like, this was their very best thinking.
Mhm. Oh,
you know,
yeah.
and you walk in there. How do you prepare for a remodel if somebody approaches you and you're kind of looking at it like the design work or the idea may make the home,
Worse.
functionally worse, right?
Well,
how do you handle that?
Most of the projects that we do, I would say, I mean, basically every project we do, we do bring in a designer. With our ideal client is somebody who wants the full package and wants the hand holding and wants the home. They don't want. We don't really work with clients that pick out all of their own materials and pick out their own paint colors. I mean, it's just that type of client the type of client that can actually do that is so far and few between. And yeah, the project the outcome of the project just doesn't really end up looking as good as it could as had we brought in a professional designer and consulted with one.
Hmm.
Hmm.
So, what are the typical steps required to get a project to construction readiness?
So obviously, it would all start with an initial consultation with a potential client, and they would hopefully decide to move forward with us for planning and design services, and what we would refer to as the planning phase of the project. And during that phase, we're consulting with various other professionals such as designer, architect, structural engineer, and so forth. So we'll work collaboratively with these professionals to develop the plans and permit drawings for the project. And then once we've applied for and while we're waiting for the city to issue the necessary permits, the designer would be working on finalizing the design finishes such as flooring, millwork, countertops, and all sorts of other finishes, right down to the paint colors of the walls and even the grout colors for the tile. And all of these details get added to the drawings, and then when we can send those drawings out to the various suppliers and subtrades that we have established relationships with, then we start getting quotes and we develop a construction budget. And then once everything's planned out, we would finalize the project schedule as well as a renovation agreement and decide on a start date. And there we go.
Ooh, renovation agreement. You heard that?
Yeah, we know that one. Yeah.
We had a guest on who was an attorney who talked about that, and you know this, right?
So important.
There are so few people that hire a contractor without getting a written agreement. And that's
it's
crazy.
Yeah.
I know Samantha gets written agreements.
Yep.
I didn't bring that up.
So Nathan, what do you think makes you a good contractor?
That's a great question.
Time to shine.
It's definitely not an easy job. I think that there are some key attributes that you've got to have to be successful in this business. Having excellent communication skills. You've got to be able to manage your time very well. You've got to be really organized. You've got to have the ability to always be thinking like 2 or 3 weeks ahead of where you're at now in all of your projects. And if you ask me like what's the most common feedback that you hear from your clients, it's like, you did what you said you were going to do when you said you were going to do it, and
So
whether
key.
it being like
Yep.
showing up to a meeting on time or providing information when I promised, responding to emails, calls promptly or texts. I know that it's a common theme for a lot of contractors to kind of go MIA, missing in action, during a project, and some even before a project starts. And so that's one of the most important things,
Yeah.
I think. And a lot of designers also give me feedback, and they say they love working with me because they know that, when they provide me with drawings and specs for a project that they've designed, I'm not going to go cutting corners by changing their designs to save time or save costs. And they tell me that, this happens all the time. And so when they do walkthroughs with their clients and with our clients, they notice, and they notice that like some fixtures or tiles are not going to be subbed out for something, for other than what they spec'd out.
Mm-hmm. So what surprises your clients the most about home remodeling?
The biggest thing and the funniest thing probably is like the dust. It usually catches them a bit off guard, just because the whole process is it's just a dusty, messy ordeal. And we use like barriers and zipper kits to protect common areas, when we're working in condo buildings and do daily cleanups. But even with all that, like somehow like dust somehow seems to find its way out from even contained areas.
And it's funny for the listeners out there. Good word of advice after remodeling: change your filter. Change your air
big
First
time.
filter,
Yeah,
yeah.
for
Yeah.
sure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Something else is probably when I let them know, that their ideal timeline for completing their project probably isn't really feasible. And that's usually because most people underestimate all the time necessary to properly plan for a project. And, the old adage comes to mind, like when you fail to plan, you plan to fail. The more time we spend planning before we start construction, the project becomes much more predictable, and the potential for cost overruns and schedule overruns are just greatly reduced.
What are some common misconceptions about home remodeling?
A couple of the most common misconceptions are like one, every project finishes way over budget, and two, every project finishes way over schedule, and there are a number of reasons why these things can happen over the course of a remodel, but there are lots of ways to help mitigate the risks, which is why we spend so much time in the planning process before we start a new project. Like we don't even swing a hammer until we fully estimated the project. And what I mean by fully estimated is, we've submitted the drawings that include all of those notes and details that I was mentioning earlier to suppliers and subtrades so that we can get fixed prices and quotes back from them. And a lot of other contractors, they'll just like rush through this process and start a project just because they want to start it as quickly as possible. But really, that's a recipe for disaster. And you can keep the project on schedule a lot better once you've got all that solid planning in, and because everything just becomes much more transparent and predictable. The scope of work is just really well defined by that time and understood by everyone involved. And I think that the emphasis, I think that the emphasis that we place on planning is something that sets us apart from our competition.
Yeah, I like that. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. That's great.
Right.
So last question, which areas do you serve?
So we pretty much all over the greater Seattle area. It really just depends on the project and scope of work. So I think what I tell people is the best thing to do is just have somebody have them get in touch with us, so that we can have that initial conversation and about the project and just go from there.
How do people get in touch with you?
Calling or text message is probably one of the best, and I can be reached at 206-499-3890, and email is also good. Nathan at terrabuildersinc.com.
Terra Builders
Yeah,
Inc.
Terra, Terra, and then builders with an SINC.com.
All right. Well, Nathan, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
After the break, we'll have some final thoughts. We'll have a little Stump the Broker and something to do on the weekend. So join us right after this break.